Hi, my name is Jed. I'm the lead pastor of Good Samaritan Community Covenant Church.
And I'm Laurel Jolliffe, and I am your chair for Good Samaritan Church.
We're really excited just to come and bring a brief update. This is something that the leadership team and I are committed to doing, just sharing as much as we know, as soon as we know it with you, the congregation.
Yeah, so what we're trying to do is every other month or so, we want to update you as to how we're doing, what we're doing, how we're not doing, what's going on, and finances and all that stuff, and just to make sure we're on the same page with you.
So when I think about what the church is doing and how God is moving our church forward, advancing the kingdom, there are a couple of numbers just that come to mind. The number 3 is a big number for me because we've had 3 people that have recommitted their lives to Christ this year. The number 2 is a huge number for me because we have 2 discipleship groups that are meeting on an ongoing basis. The number 2 is also a huge word because we had kids in the nursery, both services, for the very first time in forever. That's a big deal. We also relaunched our youth ministry program. There were 18 students on campus. That was a beautiful relaunch. 18 is also a big number because we had 18 children's ministry volunteers gathering for an information and encouragement meeting. There is just a lot that is happening in the life of the church. And so we just wanted to come and celebrate that God is using you to advance our kingdom. We're increasing our love for God, increasing our love for our community, increasing our love for each other.
That sounds so exciting. I can't wait to hear more about it. So again, one of these ways is this video where you're going to be getting these every other month. It will be doing an e-blast, so you'll get them on email. We'll be offering them at church, so for those who don't get email. And so we want to make sure that you see this exciting stuff that's going on. So one of the changes that we've made this year is we're exploring the leadership team model. And so what that means is we're changing from the executive board model and the deacon and CLB and the trustee model, and we're going to the leadership team. And so that's been a fun transition. We've got some phenomenal people on our team. And so the leadership team is actually meeting twice a month, the first and the third Tuesdays of the month. The first Tuesday of the month is kind of a family night, is kind of what we're calling it. We share a meal, we share thoughts, we share goals, we share dreams, we share struggles. And it's kind of a relationship building time. So when we do meet on the third Tuesday of the month, we can get down to business. And we did. But fortunately, we have a phenomenal team, as I mentioned. And so that business is going pretty darn well. I'm pretty excited about it.
So you might be wondering, what exactly does a leadership team do? We've got 5 roles and responsibilities. The first is that this team monitors the overall health of the church. And so we're just asking, how healthy is Good Samaritan? How healthy are we spiritually? How healthy are we organizationally? How healthy are we emotionally? Because we want to be a healthy church.
One of the other things that we get to do is we get to be the ones to, in addition to you guys, but we get to intentionally encourage our pastors and to make sure that they're okay and they're happy and they're safe and they're not being burnt out. And so that's something that we've all experienced before, and so we don't want burnout to happen. So we are intentionally doing that.
The third thing that the leadership team is doing is they are discerning and praying and seeking and clarifying strategic priorities, spiritual priorities for the church and strategic priorities. And the good news is that our team has been working extremely hard, and we're going to be able to share with you some of our priorities for the coming year.
Yep. And then another thing that we do is we're crafting and we're going to monitor the budget for getting ready for next year, as well as every year. And so we have a finance team that I can't wait to tell you about more later. And so that budget is really important to us.
And the last thing, and this might not ever happen at Good Sam, but if it ever were to occur, the leadership team also is there to step into crisis so that we have solid, godly leaders leading us through really rocky waters, really rough waters. Again, I'm just really thankful for the team. They're doing an exceptional job of understanding our roles and responsibilities and living into them.
Another item that the leadership team is doing is we are revising and changing our constitution and bylaws for the leadership team model. Now, I will start that with a caveat, and that is we're testing it out. And so in February of next year, you guys get to decide whether or not we want to adopt this formally. But in the interim, this year, we're trying this model. And what that means is we're also changing the constitution and bylaws to fit the leadership team model. And so we have a constitution and bylaws team that's working feverishly to get this done. They're also eager to get your comments and suggestions as well. We definitely want to hear from you regarding that. And then we will present that all to you in February before you vote.
So the only reason that we're doing this is we believe that this new leadership team model, this new organizational chart, will help advance our vision that we will be able to go farther and that we will be able to go farther faster.
So how about, let's start talking about our goals for a little bit here. And so why don't you share a little bit about the first spiritual goal that we have for 2021?
Yeah, so this is what's really beautiful. We've been thinking and we've been praying and we've been asking God, what do healthy churches do? What are one of the marks of a healthy church? And what we have concluded is that healthy churches are places where people come to Christ for the first time. Or if they've walked with Christ for a while and they've left the path, they return to Christ. And so we have, our first spiritual goal is that we would celebrate that at least 10 people have accepted Jesus Christ for the very first time or rededicated their lives to Christ. This is what healthy churches are about. And so we're in the process of just asking God, how can we be a part of your plan, God, inviting people to experience you for the very first time? The good news is that in this year, there are 3 people that have already made that decision. And so we can't wait to welcome more people as they are introduced to Jesus Christ for the first time or when they come back to him.
That's super exciting, and that kind of transitions us into the second spiritual goal. And what that is Pastor Jed spoke about it already, that we've got the 2 discipleship programs going on right now. And that is one way that we're trying to encourage people and encourage them to get to know Jesus and to accept him, to be part of his world and our world. And so we have strategic plans for how that happens, but the discipleship program is essential for that.
So whatever ministry that you're in, the question that we're asking our leaders to wrestle with is how do people come to Christ in your ministry? How do people come to Christ at Good Sam? And then how do people continue to grow in their relationship through discipleship so they can be disciples that make disciples that make disciples?
And so now I'm going to share a little bit with you about our strategic goals, because the other couple were spiritual, and now these are some strategic ones. The first strategic goal that we, the leadership team, have decided on is we are in the middle of implementing and designing a giving system. And so that means if someone is a first-time giver, they get a note from Pastor Jed or the leadership team Mind you, we don't know who they are, and we don't need to know who they are. Our financial secretary, Julia, sends that card to them and lets them know that, hey, you are on the beginning of a phenomenal journey. Once Jesus sees that you're trusting in him, he's going to bless you beyond measure. And so that's kind of exciting.
The second goal that we have that's a strategic goal is to answer the question, how do we bring people together out of the pandemic? We know that 49% of the people that live in our country are hesitant to regather. They want to stay home, they like their own schedule. There's still a great amount of fear that they are wrestling with. And maybe it's not fear of what's happening to their bodies, but it's something that's happening with their minds. They're just wondering how to reconnect with community. And so our leadership team is looking to identify key strategies, key tools to invite people to come be a part of community, to come be a part of the family, to become a part of the church.
And one of the first ways that we're going to do this is the little preview for the community. We're kind of testing it first, is Wednesday Night Live, which you'll hear more about that in a minute. The last strategic goal that we have, oh, actually there's two more, I beg your pardon. We are intentionally encouraging other ministries to not only take the reins, but encourage them to grow themselves. We don't want to micromanage. We don't want to tell them what to do and when to do it. We want to encourage them to be leaders on their own, and that's turning out quite well. People are enjoying and appreciating being valued as leaders and not just team members, and so that's exciting.
One of the things that we're going to do is send you the organizational chart with this video so that you can see how our ministries are taking shape, how they're taking form. The last thing that is a strategic goal of our leadership team is to think about how we can continue to expand our budget. It turns out that, that ministry costs money. And we have a lot of things that our church would like to do to advance God's kingdom, but we want to be fiscally responsible. And so we're just thinking about the things that we're not able to do. We're thinking about the things that we could attend to that would place our church in a favorable position as we continue to pass the baton of faith from one generation to the next.
So I'm going to share a little bit with you about our finance team and kind of the numbers that we're looking at and all of that. So our finance team is now being led by Dolores Snodgrass. She's awesome. And the finance team also is comprised of our financial secretary, Julia Gomes, our new treasurer, Becca Stewart, Sandy Jump, who is, she knows everything, Debbie Brown, who also knows everything, and
I think Lauren is also.
Lauren Iver, a bigger part. Yeah, so can't forget Lauren. Lauren was our trustee chair, and he has a wealth of knowledge in all things finance, and so that's who the finance team are. They're meeting a couple times a month to get up to speed as to what their new roles are. They're adopting it very well with great attitudes and encouragement and anticipation, and so it's kind of exciting. I think I saw 3 emails this morning just from them coordinating their next meeting, and so they're doing a lot of different things. One is they're working on our refinance for the mortgage that's due in September of this year. That's not any news. However, we want to be on the game and make sure that we have our ducks in a row, and we are beginning negotiations with Covenant National Properties, as trying to get the best possible loan for us. Dolores Snodgrass is actually leading that part of things in the finance team. Finance team is also overseeing the benevolence program. They have they're designing a way to make sure no one gets dropped when they ask for help, but that's an important part of Good Sam, and so the finance team is taking that wonderfully. Lastly, of course, they're dealing with budgets, and Debbie Brown is critical in that part. She's a numbers girl, and so she helps us with comparing and contrasting years prior numbers, and so just so you can see where we are compared to the last couple of years, I would like to share that with you. So our year to date through April 30th of 2021, our income is $177,226. That is about 35% of our budget, which is right on target. 33% is perfectly on target, but so we're a little ahead of target based on the budget that the budget team put together last year. In comparison, 2020, same dates, our year-to-date income was $156,700. So literally, that's a $21,000 gain year-to-date. So that's exciting to me, because I'm a numbers girl too. And then lastly, just so you want to know what a year of non-pandemic time was, so 2019 year-to-date, our income was 173,605. And so we're much closer to 19, so prior to pandemic, just to break even, if you will. We have a long ways to go. We have a massive mortgage that we want to attack with vigilance. We have a lot of things on our plate that we want to grow in 22. But the mortgage, in not growing it, but decreasing it greatly, is a huge concern of ours. And so this refinance negotiation is a big part of it. And then perhaps we might do a campaign or two to encourage, strong pay down. But nonetheless, I think it's important for you guys to know that the finance team is eager, excited, and willing, and on fire to get this thing done correctly. And so I'm super excited about that.
So as a pastor, I just want to thank you for your generosity, your faithful giving to the church, the way that you give with a whole heart. What you're doing is you're modeling who God is. What you're modeling is that you are committed to being faithful the way that He has asked you to. The way that you're modeling is that you are depending on God to continue to meet for your needs. And so you can give away freely to this church that also has a clear vision of what God is doing in our community. I love the way that we continue to grow in every way. We are heading into the summer, and I wish I could tell you that all of our bills this summer are going on vacation. They're not. They will continue to roll in. But I'm confident that our church will continue to be faithful during this summer. The good news is that we have lots of online giving options, and so you can automate your generosity. Speaking of generosity, we wanted to share with you that we're exploring something that we've never explored before. It's called Wednesday Night Live. This is when the church gathers together over a meal. Speaking of generosity, someone from our church has just cut a check so that all of our meal expenses would be provided for. This allows us just to focus on ministry. So this summer we will be gathering for a 3-week period to eat and fellowship and just be together as a church family. Again, this points to one of our strategic goals that the leadership team has set. And then after we are together for about 45 minutes, children's ministry will go and they will study God's Word in a children's ministry setting. Student ministry will go and they will study God's Word in a student ministry setting. And then adults will come and they will study God's Word in an adult ministry setting. And so we're going to discover what it looks like to be together as God's people. This is what the early church did in Acts. They gathered together, they prayed together, they fellowshiped together, and they studied God's Word together. Again, we're really thankful that you've had an opportunity just to hear from us. And if you want more information, if you have other questions, if you have feedback, we value that. And so let's continue to keep the conversation going. Blessings.